Hi, my name is Chikodi Ukaiwe. I'm the founder and CEO of Salad Africa.
Hi, my name is Lady K. I am the head of social impact and storytelling at Salad Africa. So, Chikodi, tell us about Salad Africa's origin story.
We started the company to solve a very simple problem. Africa is a people-rich environment. We have about 1.2 billion inhabitants. And for some reason, our economy doesn't typically reflect the richness of its people. We have about 480 million salaried workers, and for some reason, about 80% of them still lack liquidity to be able to live quality lives. So we took a look at it and said, what was the problem? And we find that a bulk of them get paid every 30 days, right? So you have people who are employed, but they get paid every 30 days. What that means is in between the month, they have liquidity challenges. And being problem solvers that we are, we basically just took a look at it and said, how can we make it possible that people are able to access liquidity whenever they want throughout the month? And that's how Salad was born.
That sounds like a fantastic mission and a very important problem to solve. So, why did the company shift gears and pivot?
I mean, it's a problem that still exists and it's still very important to solve. But if you're going to look back or look at the bigger picture, the problem isn't the liquidity gaps in between paychecks. The problem is the quality of the economy, right? And that is what we're trying to solve from day one. That's been our vision at Salad. In fact, that's been my personal vision, even when I was working in other companies. Our how was to provide consumer lending or liquidity to employees in particular. And that is what has changed. So it's very important to note that our vision of trying to make a more prosperous Africa, an economy that is richer, hasn't changed. It still continues in our new model. But our how is what has changed, which is instead of kind of focused on providing consumer lending, we are now focused on providing capital to the people who actually pay the salaries. So our thinking is that if those people can catalyze the economy to be richer, then the employees don't typically need to draw down their salary or take loans. Those businesses are now more equipped to maybe even increase their salaries and create a better and richer African environment for everybody. The liquidity gap is a problem, but we are now targeting the problem, which is providing liquidity in the marketplace.
Fantastic. Can I ask how you were able to carry the company along or the team along when you knew it was time to shift gears?
As CEO, right, your job, aside every other thing, is to be proactive and kind of like live in the future. So you have to monitor trends. It was no secret that we had a global economic slowdown driven by the war in Ukraine. There was also some latent post-COVID effects that economies started to experience. So globally, it wasn't a great time economically, and it was just a matter of time before it kind of seeped into Nigeria, and well, it did in Nigeria. We saw currency devaluation, we saw inflation, we saw high interest rates, everything that indicated that this environment was going to become a difficult place to do business. But we continued along, providing consumer lending because we hadn't seen any of the effects. Reason being, the way we had built our business was to be able to insulate against external shocks. I kind of give ourselves kudos for that because we relied on payment rails to be able to collect. So when banks, for instance, were experiencing record high non-performing loans, we were still experiencing 100% collections because we only lent money within employee ecosystems. But then something began to happen. The businesses in which we served started to feel the shock of the economy. We started seeing high attrition, which is that employees started leaving fairly quicker than normal. And then we also now started seeing those businesses themselves start to pay salaries slightly later than they normally would. We also saw those employees, those businesses start to request for credit themselves. Those were all the indicators that the economy macro factors have started to reach these businesses who we relied on to be able to, one, pay their salaries on time, and two, help us to collect repayments from source. Because of these macro factors, our business model was going to be at risk. So when that happened, as usual, I called my senior management team and kind of told them, look, these are the things that we are beginning to see, and this is what the future is likely to hold. I'm huge on following trends, especially with businesses who are kind of farther along than we are in other markets. And I saw that businesses in our field were also kind of looking for other ways to solve the problem. So at that point, it was basically time for us to say, okay, look, how do we, go back to our vision of a prosperous Africa, but instead of consumer lending, we maybe focus on the main characters, right? Which are the employers, which are the small businesses, which are the businesses. How do we kind of help them, one, through this economic shock, to be able to recatalyze the economy? And that's how we said, you know what, we are going to provide the capital that these businesses need to thrive. So that was basically how we built it.
Sounds like a really exciting but somewhat challenging journey, right?
Challenging, yes.
Yes.
If you don't want challenging, then you shouldn't be a startup.
Fair enough. So how would you describe what Salad Africa does now?
So we provide lending technology and capital, those two things. We provide them to software businesses that have SME customers. So you have B2B SaaS, marketplaces, e-commerce platforms, payment providers, almost any B2B focused software. We provide lending technology and capital so that they can extend flexible financing or working capital loans to their SME customers, all within their apps. So by lending technology, we are giving them plug and play APIs that they can use to create a lending journey within their app. And by capital, we've aggregated multiple banks across the country that are now able to provide financing to their SME customers. I mean, I know it sounds a bit complex, but I can promise you that it is even more complex than I've explained.
I love that. So it sounds like the mission is to make financing more accessible for SMEs in Africa, starting in Nigeria, of course, with plans to expand. So what would you say the vision is? What's the long-term goal?
The vision has remained the same, which is a more prosperous Africa. For us to be able to unlock the African continent, and I know a lot of people say this, right? Even the DFIs, even, non-profits, even the banks, everybody's trying to unlock, the prosperity in Africa. But for us to be able to truly do this, right, we need to be able to enable our small businesses to be able to, conduct trade and commerce. It's not rocket science. If you take a look at all the developed economies, take a look at America, take a look at Europe, they have a very thriving small business community. I think in Nigeria, small businesses account for maybe 98% of businesses or something. And you'll find that this number is typically between 80% to 90-something percent in almost all economies. The difference is that when your small businesses have the capital especially, or whatever tools that they need to thrive, it will show in the economy, right? So for us to be able to catalyze or ignite or unlock Africa's economy, the maybe most significant single entity that we all need to gather around and empower is the small businesses. And that's basically what we're doing. So our big vision is basically to catalyze or to accelerate trade and commerce in Africa. And the single entity that we have narrowed down to be able to do that is small businesses. And the biggest challenge that they have is access to finance. So that's what we're solving for.
Fantastic. And small businesses are often called the backbone of local economies.
Spot on.
In Africa and also around the world.
Spot on.
So it sounds like the journey has been, yes, it's challenging, of course, but also rewarding, right? Because Salad Africa has reported a number of milestones, one of them being the partnership with Glovo in Nigeria. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel about that partnership and really what it means to offer a financing program like that to Glovo partners?
Glovo was huge, right? It's kind of like validates our mission. Just kind of give you some context. When we were, in the old model, it took us 25, 26 months to be able to lend ₦1 billion in credit. We did that. We were this close to ₦1 billion in April. Right. So what we took us 25 months to do before, we did in 1 month. That basically shows the viability of the direction that we're going. Like I said, our model is to basically partner with software platforms, provide them technology, provide them capital to be able to extend to their SME customers. While we could say that the economy is having a downturn or whatever is happening in the economy is slowing down, one of the sectors that we find that is still very much thriving is food. And like I said, I'm huge in kind of researching other businesses like mine. And the more successful embedded lending platforms also kind of have uptick in food delivery. More specifically, Glovo. I think one of the biggest embedded lending platforms in Europe by market cap. One of their first customers was Glovo.
Yeah.
So that kind of is a good signal for us and for investors that, okay, we have a very clear line to success. And if a company like Glovo that has partnered with much, much bigger companies in Europe and in Spain, in other places, can also kind of partner with Salad, is a good indication of what we're doing. And that we're a very good option for them in this market.
Yeah. So what Salad Africa has been able to achieve in 1 month, right, this year, compared to what Salad Africa was able to achieve in 25 months under the previous model, is very impressive, right? And I also know that at the end of 2024, we competed in a Zenith Bank hackathon and we're one of the winners, right? Are there any other milestones you think is important to share with the ecosystem?
It's kind of good you mentioned that Zenith Bank one, because it may have seemed like just one of those things, but it was very key. It was a very key turning point for us because one of the things we do is, aside from providing lending technology, is to connect these software platforms with capital. And how we do that is we work with banks. And I mean, there's not many bigger banks than Zenith Bank. I think last year they declared the highest profit amongst all commercial banks. They also don't have like a reputation of working with startups. So to kind of be in that league of a very short list is a big deal. We've also kind of put together some partnerships that we intend to kind of see out over the course of the year, which is very important. So it's huge validation, right? To be able to get Nigeria's arguably biggest commercial bank to not only give you grant funding, but to also like partner with you as a commercial partner. As regards other milestones, I mean, I think within the next couple of months, we should be approaching profitability, which is huge, right, in today's economy. Also, we have some very exciting partnerships with companies in the e-commerce space. Anybody who knows me knows my background can kind of guess which e-commerce companies I'm talking about. We also have exciting companies in the payment space, which you kind of see us do something very unique in the embedded lending space. We also have offers from companies in Zambia, Kenya. Our global partnership has started in Nigeria. Who knows which other countries we're going to unlock next. So yeah, we're moving fairly quickly. Like the way I introduced Salad is like we're the fastest growing embedded lending company in Africa. And I kind of stand by that because the way we are kind of blitzing, we're averaging growth of about 50% month on month. I think last month we grew maybe like 100 and something percent month over month, which is, is blitz crazy. Obviously, we expect to kind of see that kind of level out as time goes by. But right now we're kind of like, we're enjoying and the blitz scale. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. In addition to all the important milestones that we've been able to celebrate this year, as well as the growth we've seen as well, we also developed impact metrics in March. And our commitment is to track those metrics over the course of the year and, of course, in the future as well. But it's always good to start somewhere. So this conversation was very important for us to have. And I will allow Chikodi close us out and, express his gratitude.
Yeah. So I mean, thanks for putting this together. I think it was a very important conversation to have. It's a question I get all the time. People are like, okay, what happened? I actually had an investor tell me while we were doing due diligence with them was that we came across a video where you were speaking very passionately about empowering employees. What happened? And I found that kind of funny because I'm passionate about everything I do. And the fact that we switched directions isn't because of a lack of passion for what we were doing before, but it's actually because we are now taking it up in gear from solving one problem to kind of attacking the problem for economic prosperity. So I'm very glad that we kind of addressed it. I'd like to thank, this isn't a Grammy speech. I don't want it to seem like we've gotten to the pinnacle of success, but if I do say so, we are in a very, very good space. We're in a good position, like I said, approaching profitability soon. And we're also in a niche where the founding team has core competence. You cannot remove the fact that I, in particular, spent almost 7 years at the forefront of e-commerce in this country. So I also have banking background. So to be able to combine banking with my e-commerce experience to then now provide banking for e-commerce platforms, I think there is some founder product fit there, and I'm having fun, I can't lie. So yeah, I'd like to thank my team. First of all, for the trust. Trust in the vision that what we're doing now has a lot more gravity than what we're doing before, even though we've been doing that for over 2 years. I'd like to thank our advisors. I'd like to thank our investors, both new and old. And then obviously like our platform partners and our banking partners, whom when we did the pivot, we basically started with APIs, right? We connected banks with platforms to provide value for SMEs. So those conversations were not as easy as they are right now. But we're very grateful that they believed in us to kind of kick off.
Thank you so much, Chikodi, for coming to this conversation. And thank you everyone for watching. We look forward to sharing more wins, more insights, and more learnings about our sector. Hi, my name is Lady K, and I am the head of storytelling and social impact at Salad Africa. At Salad Africa, we want to do more than just close the SME funding gap. We also want to transform lives, local economies, and underserved communities and businesses. Let's take a closer look at our impact metrics. Our first metric is financial inclusion. With this metric, we are tracking the total number of credit value disbursed and the number of SMEs we are funding in our financing ecosystem. In April of 2025, we disbursed over $500,000 of credit value, and we are currently helping over 1,000 SMEs grow their businesses and scale sustainably. Our second metric is job creation, and we're doing this both directly and indirectly. Now, directly, we are tracking the number of jobs we create within Salad Africa. Indirectly, by helping SMEs gain access to financing, we're giving them the tools that they need to grow. And when SMEs grow, they're able to hire extra hands to take their businesses to the next level. By the end of 2025, Salad Africa is committed to creating 100 jobs, both directly and indirectly. Our third metric is gender inclusion. We currently track the number of women in leadership positions within our company and also the number of women in our advisory team. Currently, 75% of our senior management team members are women, 50% of our advisory team members are women, and 40% of our employees are women. Our fourth and final metric is value chain prosperity. With this metric, what we're doing is tracking the growth in business revenues and financial stability for our SMEs and our lending partners in our ecosystem and funding portfolio. With this metric, what we're doing is ensuring that our partners are not just connecting to SMEs, but they're also understanding how these SMEs are growing over the course of 12 months. We're committed to tracking value chain prosperity because we understand that when the SME funding gap in Africa is closed, more businesses will be able to see real-time value in their businesses. On a final note, Salad Africa is also committed to contributing to 4 sustainable development goals. SDG 1, no poverty. SDG 5, gender equality. SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. And SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Thank you to our investors, lending partners, SMEs in our ecosystem, and every single person who has supported Salad Africa from when we started as an earned wage access company to where we are now, providing financial infrastructure for SMEs and digital platforms in Africa. We are very much looking forward to closing the SME funding gap and contributing positively to local economies on the continent and even around the world.